to another episode of Off the Cuff, which I try to do every Thursday, but obviously that hasn't been happening for various reasons. Mainly it's difficult to get inspired enough to do something that I think is worth putting out there. I don't want to just spit stuff out every week just because I feel like I have to. I want to bring something that I feel inspired about. So I got inspired to do another kind of a part 2 to the last episode, which was called Reap J. Lamb. Now, because this is part 2 of a 2-part series, or maybe it'll end up being a 3-part series, I would advise you to watch part 1 because I get in kind of a lot of occult symbolism, and if you're not familiar with it, it might get really confusing really fast. But let's just fly through it one more time, just so you know what the hell I'm talking about here. So we're going to be talking about the Eye of Providence, which you know from the back of the $1 bill, and you know this little eye in the triangle symbol, that's the Illuminati symbol. That's the secret society that seems to be behind, the New World Order plan. And you note that the triangle is floating above the bottom structure. There's a separation there. And that's to symbolize, that this is the unknowable, most high, basically God, the secular God that seems to rule our world. And you have a trapezoid with 13 steps. And Eddie Vedder was home alone at age 13 while his real daddy was dying, which made him the widow's son. That made his mother a widow. And if you study Freemasonry, for the sake of the widow's son, that's a big thing. So is the number 13. And the widow's son was actually Hiram Abiff, who was murdered. He was the builder of King Solomon's temple. So this gets very deep. If you want to, okay, it could just be coincidence, but I'm just putting this together from knowledge I know. And this we think is an eagle, but it's actually a phoenix rising from the ashes, that's kind of like the Christ thing. Christ, died and rose from the ashes like the phoenix, right? And if we look at the Kabbalah, the Kabbalistic tree of life, we see that the supernal triad at the top, which is the most high, most unknowable, is separated by this abyss here. And the path leading from the abyss to Tifereth, which is the sun, is called Doth, which is knowledge. That's the big, dark, kind of like crossing over, almost like, when you die and you cross over to the spiritual realm. You could think of it that way. So anyway, we're way down here. The earth is way down here, number 10. That's Malkuth. 10. It's the name of Pearl Jam's album. That's where everything's taking place. And number 5 is Jebra. That's war. That's red for blood and red for war. Mars, fighting, 5 fingers on the hand, make a fist, 5 limbs, head, arms, legs, the number of man. So now that we've run through all that, we can look at this and we see that 5 is the number of members of the band. 1, he's telling you 1 is way up there. Well, what's way up there? If we look at the actual album cover, you can see he's pointing above here. What's up here? Well, you see the A? That A is a trapezoid. You get it? So that's the bottom part of the Eye of Providence pyramid. The invisible eye is up here. You can't see it. But it's right in front of you because look, there it is right there. See that watch? See their arms? That's a triangle they're holding up. Their arms are forming a triangle. They're holding it up. They're pushing it up. And what does this all mean? Well, this has to do with the sacrifice that was made for their fame. And my theory, and I'm calling it a theory because I don't know if it's fact, I'm considering the idea that Andrew Wood was actually a sacrifice in order for Pearl Jam to get famous, because Pearl Jam rose right out of the ashes of Mother Love Bone instantly, right after Andrew Wood was taken from this world. And number 5 is Jebra. It's red. It's war. We've got red here. You see that? You've got hot pink, but you've got red beneath that. So we never got a clear answer as to what the name Pearl Jam actually means. There's explanations out there, but they've been called bullshit by, I think Eddie Vedder said it was bullshit himself years later, that it wasn't his great-grandmother's jam recipe, but although he did have a great-grandmother named Pearl. So they're playing around with this. I think it's an anagram for reap Lamb J, or Reap J Lamb. The Lamb of God, J, Jesus. That's interesting. So you think of sacrifice, and Andrew Wood, he sang about, he had biblical references. Chloe Dancer, Crown of Thorns, that's Jesus. And a lot of rock stars like to do this, like, oh, I'm going to sing about Jesus now. That's provocative, and kind of mess around with that whole crucifixion imagery and blood and sacrifice. So Andrew Wood was the lamb that was reaped. The result of that sacrifice was Pearl Jam's fame and fortune. So why does it say J for Jesus? Well, it's a metaphor. It's a mockery. It's all very blasphemous. And of course, the first song on the album is called Once, which has the word one in it. So they're worshiping the one, which, I guess that would be the Illuminati, right? And they even put it on the front of one of their albums not too long ago, a few years back. Now, for the past couple of weeks that I haven't uploaded an episode, I was done with this topic. I was sort of waiting for something else to come along to talk about, but this kind of came into my face. I started looking at Pearl Jam again. Oh, I haven't heard Verses in a while, their second album, and all this stuff just started jumping out at me. Like, first of all, when this album first came out, I thought this was a camel or a llama or something. I didn't know what the hell it was. Well, it turns out it's a sheep. But what's strange is, when you go to Wikipedia, look what it says here. The album's cover art, photographed by Ament, the bass player, features a black and white picture of an Angora goat from Lifeline Farm in Victor, Montana. Now, if you recall, in the last episode, we looked at this weird song called Evil Little Goat, which was a song they recorded during the 10 sessions, but that wasn't released until later on a compilation. I believe it was called Lost Dogs. So this goat thing is kind of weird. It comes out of left field, right? Like, when you think Pearl Jam, you don't think like goats and Satan and all that stuff. That's what heavy metal's for, right? Or, today, that's what mainstream pop and hip-hop is for, right? Which is strange, because when I was younger, heavy metal was where Satan lived. If the hip-hop people used to make fun of us, they'd be like, what's up with that Satan stuff? You know what I mean? And now they're the ones, pushing it more than anyone. So just goes to show you that, the devil is most likely behind all of this stuff. Anyhow, getting back to the topic. So Wikipedia says that according to Ament, it's an Angora goat. Well, that's not what Ament said. Let's look where they got this. From a Spin magazine article. Okay, well, here's the article right here. I found it. Look, Ament. The picture of the sheep on their cover of Verses was from a farmer down by Hamilton, Montana. So Wikipedia is misrepresenting what Ament said. Why are they changing it from sheep to goat? Doesn't goat sound even weirder? Like, weirdos like me who have overactive imaginations are going to go, oh, what's with the goat? That must be satanic. But it's actually more tricky than that, more interesting than that. Because what is a lamb? A lamb is a baby sheep. And I wasn't thinking of that at all when I was looking at this anagram here, Reap J Lamb. But now I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm not so crazy, because this is a grown-up lamb right here. And what's happening to the lamb? The lamb's trapped, but he's trying to escape the fence. He's been fenced in. So what does this represent? Does this represent the sacrifice that Pearl Jam made? And now they're kind of going, well, wait a minute now. We don't really like this. We feel trapped. We want to break out of this. We don't want to be slaves to the Illuminati. And I guess there's another version here. We can see it a lot clearer. Now, I'm no expert in sheep and goats and all that, but Ament right there said it's a sheep. And I guess sheep have wool fur, whereas goats have hair. I guess that's one of the differences. Now, apparently, the original title of this album, the original name for it was 5 Against 1, which you see the song Animal. He's counting. Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 against 1, 5, 5, 5 against 1. What's with these numbers? I mean, am I crazy? Am I just, trying too hard to look into numbers that are occult here? Well, we already know 5 was an important number for the album 10, because 5 members of the band, remember? And now it's 5 against 1. Who's the one? You know what it sounds like they're saying? They're rebelling. They're saying, wait a minute. We don't, fuck this deal. We don't want to serve you. We don't want to serve the Illuminati. I think that's what's going on here. I think that's what all that anger and all that frustration and Eddie Vedder saying, I can't record on this ranch. It's too comfortable. I have to go sleep in a van in San Francisco for 2 nights and get back to my roots and come back. I mean, it all sounds kind of silly. Like, I want to sit here and be like, I believe that Pearl Jam was rebelling against the Illuminati, but I feel like it's a trick. It's fake. I feel like it's fake rebellion, and I don't really know, but clearly the theme is rebellion here, okay? But there is something to these numbers, because look at the album titles. So they released the album 5 Against 1, I guess, in a limited fashion. Certain cassettes out there had 5 Against 1 on there before they changed to verses. Well, what is verses? It's a V and a S. V is a Roman numeral for 5. So again, 5 is war, 5 is red, 5 is blood. I'm not a numerologist. I'm not a big numbers guy, but when they throw them in your face like that, I gotta assume there's something to it. They're trying to tell us something. So if we look at these lyrics, I'd rather be with an animal. Why would you want to hurt me? So frightened of your pain. What is all this pain and hurt he's talking? There's a lot of physical hurt. It's a very physically brutal album. I never used to understand any of it. I still don't really. But once fastened, servile, now you're getting sharp, moving oh so swiftly with such disarm. This theme of breaking your chains, breaking away from your leash, breaking away from the Illuminati, comes up a lot in a lot of these songs. Glorified G is some type of political statement about guns. Like you're a dumbass if you like guns or something like that. There's a lot of social, political messages here that I'd like to get way into, but I'm not going to bother. So what's this about? Blood, spin me around, roll me over, fucking circus, stab it down, one-way needle, pulled so slowly, drains and pills, soaks the pages, fills their sponges. It's my blood. It's my blood. Paint Ed big, turn Ed into one of his enemies. Who's Ed? It's Eddie Vedder? Is he talking about some kind of torture he went through? Like, it's like he's saying he's some tortured animal, some trained animal, a slave. And look at this. That picture, talking about the sheep on the cover of Verses, that picture at least semi-represented how we felt at the time. As Prince would put it, we were slaves. Well, that's funny. I brought up Prince a lot in a blog I did about The Watchmen some time ago, because Prince went on tour, or maybe it was the Super Bowl, and he wrote the word slave on the side of his face. Now, what are you talking about? You're a superhero. You're a super megastar. You got women, you got money. How can you possibly be a slave? Well, it's the same thing. They sign their name over. They sign a deal, okay? And it's in blood, and they can't get out of it. And they get angry. They want to get out of it. And I'm just going off of things I've seen, things I've read, and from what I know, the only way out of that is Jesus Christ. Time to emancipate. I couldn't breathe, holding me down, hand on my face, pushed to the ground. Who's doing this to Eddie Vedder? What is all this abuse he's talking about? He said in an interview that a lie was about having sex with his mother. She walked slowly across the young man's room. She said, "I'm ready for you." Now I can't see. I just stare because I'm traumatized. I can't see what's going on. I can't remember anything to this very day because he was in shock. Tried to endure what I could not forgive. Saw things. What'd you see, Eddie? Once you were in my rearview mirror, I gather speed from you fucking with me. So he's trying to get away from whoever these are, the mind control people, the abuse. He's a slave, I guess. That would sort of explain his resistance to all this fame and fortune and stuff. Like, why would you resist that? Don't you want to be famous? Don't you want to be... there's two ways to look at it. There's the Kurt Cobain angle of, I don't like being able to buy the whole store. I want to be able to be broke and have to hunt for stuff in the thrift store. That's cool. I get that. That's a very human explanation. But I think we're naive if we think that's the only explanation here. There's something else going on. Rats, they don't eat, don't sleep, they don't feed, they don't seethe. Bare their gums when they moan and squeak. Rats are the classic symbol of, the creature that gets experimented upon, right? Despite all my rage, I'm still just a rat in a cage. So there's a theme here of, an animal that's in a laboratory being abused and experimented upon. And, all I think about is MK Ultra mind control when I think of that stuff in this context. Leash, troubled souls unite. We got ourselves tonight. I am fuel, you are friends. We got the means to make amends. I am lost, I'm no guide, but I'm by your side. It was their idea. I proved to be a man. Take my fucking hand. It was their idea. We will find a way. We will find our place. Drop the leash, drop the leash. Again, escaping. I'm an animal that's in a cage and I'm on a leash and I'm breaking it, and come with me and I'll take you. If you're trapped, we'll all go together. You see the theme here? I'll keep taking punches until their will grows tired. I will stare the sun down until my eyes go blind. I'll swallow poison until I grow immune. I will scream my lungs out till it fills the room. He's fighting against something here. And I don't think it's just your typical human struggle. Now, in the last episode, I brought up The Who. I bring up The Who a lot in these because I think The Who was a very pivotal moment in trauma-based mind control as applied to music, because they use trauma a lot in The Who. And they get you to identify with the loser and the abused. And they make you feel like, you're okay no matter who you are or what you've done. There's these cathartic moments. They're really good at capturing those triumphant, cathartic moments. And I mentioned how that reminded me, especially songs like Baba O'Reilly or Behind Blue Eyes. I get a similar feeling that we get when we listen to the first Pearl Jam, like some traumatized individual triumphing over, horrible abuse. And that's exactly what we get with Eddie Vedder. And maybe some of you were like, this guy's stretching things a bit. Well, look at this Spin article. Talking about this. Now, this is the director of, I believe, the movie Singles, who was married to Nancy Wilson of Heart. Eddie was painfully shy. It was weird because he was barely there, but you couldn't take your eyes off of him. There's a guy sort of sitting across from you with his hands on his lap and looking down, and you wanted to reach out and let him know that he didn't have to be so shy. What does this sound like? Does this sound like a guy that was abused? That's what it sounds like to me. He was and still is an amazing listener. When he locks in and he's talking about something that matters to him, the whole world disappears. Hours can go by. The first time I met him, we mostly talked about Pete Townsend. He knew every detail. I remember very clearly my feeling that Pete Townsend could have written this guy as a character. He was a living Pete Townsend character. Okay, so I don't know. Maybe I read this a long time ago and forgot that I read it, and it sort of came out subliminally, but I'm not the only guy noticing this connection between The Who and, in particular, Eddie Vedder and this whole trauma thing. I mean, this guy sounds like someone who was horribly abused. And, all right, now that we've beat the shit out of you, go sing about it, and we'll pay you some money, and you'll be a big rock star. Doesn't that kind of explain, Eddie Vedder's behavior around this time? And then later, he met Pete Townsend. Here's what Pete Townsend said. I met Eddie at my solo show in Berkeley, California, 1993. I recognized him in the audience, but he looked bemused, a little lost. Afterward, I spent an hour with him. It could have been ironic. The play I was performing about old, worn-out stars trying to pass on their wisdom to younger performers. Is that interesting to think about for a minute? I can't remember what I said, probably something about just accepting who he obviously was, a new rock star. I think maybe he could see the new rock and roll rules of his life being rewritten, and he didn't like them. So, Pete Townsend's been in the game a lot longer, obviously, and there are people that thrive in that kind of a system. And Pete Townsend was one of those people. He's probably, I don't know the guy, but he seems like he's probably a depraved man. And he can put on a good act for the public and come off as decent and all that, but underneath, who knows what he's really doing behind closed doors, and you got to figure people are people, and some people are better actors than others. But, it kind of seems like Eddie Vedder has fallen more in line over the years. But, the peak of all this, sort of rebellion that Pearl Jam, was expressing against the industry kind of manifested in that whole Ticketmaster debacle where they were trying to take Ticketmaster to court. And they put all this energy and effort into it. And in the end, they didn't get anywhere. So part of me wants to believe, and has believed for many years, that Pearl Jam really meant that they were trying to fight against these exorbitant, these crazy fees and stuff. But maybe that was just fake rebellion again, just to make us think, yeah, that's what I'd be doing. If I was Eddie Vedder, I'd be fighting those people. And then the message is, well, go ahead and try it. You'll just lose. That's the message. You can't fight the man. You're just an animal in the playpen of the man. And the best you can do is, jump around like a monkey and try and climb up and reach that, reach that triangle above the trapezoid that you're stuck in. But you're never going to get there because it's a big club and you ain't in it. And if you do get in it, it's going to cost you. Blood in, blood out.